The scrapyard stretched as far as the eye could see, endless mounds of twisted alloy and broken circuits, a graveyard of alien wonders that most had forgotten how to use. Rust-colored dust clung to every surface, drifting in the hot winds of the colony world, known only as Outpost 12. To most, the scrapyard was lifeless, just dead metal scattered across barren soil. But to Elias Kale it was alive. He could hear it breathing. It had been like this for as long as he could remember. Machines spoke to him in whispers too faint for anyone else. Not words exactly, but rhythms, vibrations, subtle pulses that told him when a circuit long considered useless still had life, when an engine discarded as junk could roar again with the right touch. People laughed when he claimed the scrap hummed to him. They said he was delusional, just a grease-stained mechanic with too much imagination. But Elias never listened to them, because the machines never lied. Every day, he walked the dusty plains between the heaps, listening. His hands were calloused from years of wrench work, his ears trained to catch what no scanner ever could. Today, as he stripped wiring from a collapsed transport, he paused mid-motion. Beneath the wind, beneath the metallic groans of shifting wreckage, something else was beating. A pulse, slow, steady, like the echo of a heart deep beneath the ground. He froze, tilting his head. It wasn't just noise. It was real. The scrapyard had always murmured. But this was different. He could feel it in his chest, reverberating through the soil. No one else noticed. Workers shouted. Welders sparked torches. Scavenger drones crawled across wrecks. To them it was just another shift. But Elias felt it as if it was calling his name. He dropped the wiring, crouched low, and pressed his palm to the ground. Yes, there it was again. A deep thrum, faint but consistent, buried somewhere far below. His pulse quickened. It was not the random vibration of machinery settling. It was alive. He told himself not to get carried away. But the sound followed him for the rest of the day. Even when he tried to ignore it, it was there, like a drum hidden beneath the skin of the world. When his shift ended, Elias didn't go straight back to the workers' quarters. Instead, he lingered at the edge of the scrapyard, staring out across the jagged horizon. His mind was already set. That night, long after most had gone to sleep, Elias slipped out again. The moonlight stretched pale across the heaps, and the scrapyard was quiet at last. Only the faint hum remained. He followed it. His boots crunched over loose metal as he descended into one of the older sectors, places no one visited anymore, because the scrap was too old, too incomprehensible to repurpose. The hum grew louder. His breath caught. The ground dipped into a shallow ravine, half hidden under collapsed towers of alien hull plating. At the bottom, half buried beneath centuries of junk, was a structure unlike the rest. Smooth lines, strange carvings, the kind of alloy no one could cut through. Elias had seen parts of before, thought it was just another fragment of some old war relic. But tonight, the heartbeat thundered from within it. He climbed down, brushing away dust with his hands, tracing the carvings with his fingers. They pulsed faintly beneath his touch. He swallowed hard. He had repaired 100 alien engines, patched countless unknown devices. But this was different. It wasn't dead. It was waiting. The hum quickened, as if recognizing him. For a moment Elias thought he was imagining it. He pressed both hands against the surface, leaning close. The carvings lit up in faint blue lines that snaked outward like veins. His chest tightened. Something ancient and immense stirred beneath the earth, and he was the only one who could hear it awaken. He stumbled back, staring in disbelief as the ground shuddered slightly, dust falling from the heaps around him. Then, just as suddenly, the light faded. The hum softened, almost apologetic, like a heartbeat slipping back into slumber. Elias stood there, trembling. He knew two things. First, whatever was hidden here had been waiting a very long time. And second, it had chosen him. Sleep didn't come easily that night. His mind kept replaying the sound, the glow, the way the carvings had responded to his touch. The scrapyard had always whispered, but this was the first time it had answered. He lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint throb echoing in his memory. He could almost feel it in his bones. The following days he returned whenever he could, slipping away from his regular duties to kneel beside the buried structure. Each time, the hum rose to meet him. He experimented, laying his tools against the alloy, pressing wires, tapping softly with his wrench. The ship, or whatever it was, responded to none of those things, only to him. His voice, his touch, his presence. It made no sense. Alien engineers had studied scraps like these for centuries with scanners, translators, energy projectors. None of them had ever cracked the secrets. Yet a human mechanic, armed with nothing but instinct, had woken something long dormant. The thought unsettled Elias almost as much as it thrilled him. He began to dream of it. In his sleep, he walked through corridors lit by the same pulsing veins of blue. He heard whispers, not words but tones, like the ship was trying to speak through rhythm alone. Sometimes he woke with his heart pounding in perfect sync with the hum. He knew it couldn't stay hidden forever. Someone would notice his absences, the dirt on his boots, the distracted look in his eyes. But Elias also knew he couldn't stop. The scrapyard had been his home for years, but this heartbeat beneath the ground felt like destiny. Elias could not stay away. Each time he returned to the buried vessel, the hum grew clearer, as though the thing beneath the ground remembered him. The more he listened, the more he realized it wasn't just a simple rhythm. It shifted with his emotions, softened when he was calm, sharpened when he grew restless, like the ship itself was mirroring him. One evening, while the scrapyard was empty, Elias pressed his palm against the alloy and whispered a question he didn't even know how to phrase. The hum rose sharply in answer, pulsing so strongly it rattled the dirt under his boots. He jerked his hand back, staring. This was no trick of the mind. This was connection. But secrets never lasted in a place like Outpost 12. His prolonged absences drew attention. Others had started asking questions. Why was Elias sneaking away at night? Why did he look half-crazed with exhaustion? One scavenger followed him, and though Elias tried to shake him, the man saw the faint glow through the cracks of the buried hangar. Within days, rumors spread. The alien overseers arrived swiftly, silver-skinned officials with elongated limbs and voices like static. Their eyes scanned every worker as if searching for guilt. They interrogated Elias, but he said little. They brought instruments, scanners that hummed and sparked, pointed them at the buried structure. Nothing. To their frustration, the vessel remained silent. Only when Elias laid his hand on the alloy did the hum swell, faint lights flickering along the carvings. The overseers exchanged uneasy glances. They tried again, pushing him aside, touching the ship themselves. It stayed dead. They turned their scanners on him, bewildered by the lack of explanation. Elias felt their stares like knives. To them, humans were tools, cheap laborers useful for lifting, welding, dying in places aliens preferred not to risk themselves. For a vessel of such importance to respond only to a human, it unsettled them deeply. They ordered him back to the hangar day after day, demanding he repeat the miracle under their supervision. Each time he did, the ship responded. Each time they attempted it themselves, nothing. One alien official muttered a phrase Elias barely caught. It chooses him. Another silenced her immediately, but the words clung to him. The overseers tried everything. They flooded the cavern with energy currents, hammered at the alloy with precision tools, spoke ancient codes and forgotten dialects. Nothing worked. Yet when Elias touched it, the veins glowed faintly and the hum strengthened. They didn't understand how he was doing it. Elias wasn't sure he did either. He only knew that when he approached the ship, he didn't think in equations or technical terms like the overseers did. He listened. He felt. He treated it not as an object to be dissected, but as a living thing reaching out in silence. One night after the overseers had left in frustration, Elias remained behind, sitting with his back against the vessel, listening. The hum was faint, almost tired. "You're weak, aren't you?" he whispered. "You're hurt." The pulse quivered as though in pain. Elias closed his eyes, thinking of every engine he had ever coaxed back to life with nothing but stubborn care. Machines didn't respond to commands. They responded to patience. And for the first time, he realized the vessel might not just be ancient. It might be wounded. He rose to his feet and began exploring carefully around the buried structure. beneath layers of soil and wreckage. He found conduits snapped long ago, power lines severed, joints clogged with centuries of grit. He didn't have the proper tools, but he had improvisation. Piece by piece, night after night, Elias patched what he could. He scavenged spare parts from dead transports, rewired broken connections, poured his sweat into each fix. And as he worked, the hum grew steadier, fuller, like a heart gaining strength after a long illness. When the overseers next returned, the change startled them. The vessel's veins glowed brighter under Elias' touch, and the hum filled the cavern like a living heartbeat. They whispered furiously among themselves. Some saw potential power. Others saw danger. One suggested dismantling the human to see why the ship responded to him. The thought made Elias' stomach clench, but he kept working, silent, pretending not to hear. Their debates grew louder, uglier. But nothing they did made the ship respond. They were too clinical, too cold. They approached with calculation and commands, but the vessel ignored them. Only when Elias returned did it breathe again. Soon the argument spread beyond the cavern. Alien factions in orbit took notice. Reports circulated. An ancient vessel had stirred, but only at the touch of a human. Some demanded it be destroyed before it awoke further. Others argued it must be studied, no matter the cost. A few whispered it might be a weapon of immeasurable value. Elias knew none of their goals matched his own. He didn't want to see the vessel turned into a tool of conquest or locked away again. It wasn't just a machine. It was alive in a way no one else seemed willing to admit. He felt its exhaustion, its quiet plea for care. And each night, when he sat against its hull and let its hum echo through him, he felt something he had never felt before in his life. Belonging. The turning point came when he finished repairing one of the major conduits. The glow surged, running like rivers of light across the alloy. Dust fell in sheets as the cavern trembled. The overseers panicked, shouting commands into their communicators. Elias pressed his hand firmly against the vessel, whispering for it to stay calm, though he wasn't sure if it could even understand. The ground shuddered, then stilled. A sound filled the cavern unlike anything Elias had ever heard, a resonant chord that seemed to vibrate in his very bones. It wasn't just a hum anymore. It was a voice, wordless but filled with intent. He gasped as images flashed through his mind. Warships burning, skies torn apart, a vessel fleeing across the stars, pursued, hunted, hidden. He saw a hand sealing it beneath the earth, desperate, fearful. Then silence, centuries of silence, until he came. He staggered back, clutching his head. The vision faded, leaving him gasping. The overseers crowded him, demanding answers. He said nothing. He knew instinctively the vessel had chosen him alone to witness its memory. It didn't trust them. It trusted him. From that day forward, Elias was no longer just a mechanic to them. He was a key. Some treated him like a sacred artifact. Others watched him like a dangerous animal. He was ordered to continue his work under constant surveillance, every move scrutinized. Yet even with their eyes on him, he could feel the ship listening, waiting for him to return its heartbeat to full strength. The more time he spent with it, the deeper the bond grew. When he laid his hand on the hull, he no longer just felt the hum. He felt emotions. Hunger, weariness, hope. The vessel wasn't simply a relic of war. It was a survivor. And every passing day, Elias realized something the overseers refused to admit. This was not coincidence. This was not luck. The vessel had hidden itself for centuries, waiting for someone who could hear its heartbeat. And it had not chosen any of the advanced species who prided themselves on their intellect and power. It had chosen a human mechanic. The visions haunted Elias long after they ended. When he closed his eyes, he saw fragments of the war, the desperate hands sealing the vessel beneath the ground. The last command whispered into its core: survive. It had obeyed, slumbering through centuries, waiting for someone to listen. And now, with every repair, with every heartbeat that grew steadier beneath his touch, Elias knew it was awakening. But word had spread too far. The overseers no longer operated alone. Ships descended from orbit, fleets belonging to rival factions who had caught wind of the discovery. They argued in the skies above Outpost 12, each side claiming rights to the relic. To them it was a weapon, a treasure, a key to dominance. To Elias it was something else entirely. It was alive, and it had trusted him. The cavern swarmed with alien dignitaries and armed guards. They debated endlessly, their voices sharp with greed and fear. Some demanded the vessel be dismantled before it regained its full strength. Others insisted it be taken to laboratories for study. Few considered the possibility that it had a will of its own. Elias remained silent during their arguments, standing close to the vessel, listening as its hum echoed louder each day. At night, when the guards pulled back, he pressed his hand to the alloy and whispered his doubts. "They're going to tear you apart if I can't protect you. What do you want me to do?" The hum deepened, almost like reassurance, and in his mind he felt the faintest impression of words. Not spoken, not understood, but felt. Trust. The more time he spent in contact with it, the clearer the impressions became. The vessel had been designed not just to respond to commands, but to bond with its caretaker. Not with logic or code, but with empathy, with instinct. It had been built by a civilization that understood machines could be more than tools. They could be partners. And the reason no one else could hear it was simple. They had never listened with their hearts. The aliens prepared to force their claim. They brought drilling equipment, weaponized cutters, all designed to break into the sealed sections Elias had yet to uncover. The vessel reacted violently. The hum rose into a growl, lights pulsing so bright the cavern shook. The equipment shorted, sparks flying. Workers screamed as machines overloaded. In that moment, every eye turned to Elias. Only when he stepped forward and laid his palm against the hull did the vessel calm again, returning to a steady thrum. That was when the factions understood the truth they had been avoiding. Without Elias, they had no control. With him, the vessel would obey. Suddenly, every alien voice turned toward him, demanding loyalty. One promised him wealth beyond imagining. Another threatened his life unless he cooperated. A third offered him a place among their ruling council. Elias listened to them all in silence, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought of the hum, the warmth beneath his hand, the way the vessel felt less like a weapon and more like a living companion. He thought of the trust it had placed in him, the mechanic no one else respected, and he knew he could never hand it over. The decision was forced sooner than he expected. Rival factions, tired of debate, turned their fleets against each other in orbit. Beams of light tore across the night sky as battles erupted. Debris rained down, shaking the ground. In the chaos, one faction attempted to storm the cavern. Weapons raised to seize Elias and the vessel both. He didn't hesitate. He ran to the vessel, pressed his hands against its surface, and begged it to wake. The hum surged, so strong the walls of the cavern split. The ground heaved, throwing invaders off their feet. Lights cascaded across the vessel's surface, brighter than ever before. Metal groaned as buried supports gave way, and slowly, impossibly, the vessel began to rise from the earth. Dust poured down in torrents as the ship pulled itself free of centuries of confinement. Towers of alloy emerged, gleaming faintly beneath layers of dirt and ruin. Elias clung to the hull as the floor split beneath him. When the vessel finally broke free, it hung in the cavern like a rising star, its pulse filling the air like the beat of a giant heart. The aliens shrieked in awe and terror. Some fled, others tried to attack. But the vessel's defenses awoke in an instant. Beams of light arced from hidden ports, not to kill but to disable, striking weapons from hands, shutting down power suits, scattering the invaders like insects. And through it all, Elias felt the ship's presence in his mind, calm and steady. Together, the vessel lifted higher, breaking to the cavern roof, ascending into the night. The battle in orbit froze as every ship turned its sensors toward the rising giant. A silence spread across the comms, as though every being watching realized they were witnessing something thought impossible. Inside, Elias stumbled through a newly opened hatch, guided by glowing veins of light. Corridors stretched before him, smooth and alien, yet strangely familiar from his dreams. He reached the central chamber, a vast space pulsing with energy. A seat rose from the floor, not mechanical but organic in its design, shaped as if it had been waiting for him all along. He hesitated only a moment before sitting. The instant he did, The vessel's presence flooded him fully, no longer just hums and impressions, but a tide of thought and memory. He saw its creators, a people who believed machines could bond with their caretakers. He saw their final battle, their desperate decision to hide their greatest creation until a worthy inheritor arrived. And he saw their choice written into the vessel's very core. Only one who could listen, who could feel, would ever awaken it. Elias gasped as the chamber around him lit with stars. The vessel wasn't just a machine, it was a companion, and now it was alive again because of him. He didn't need training manuals or alien codes. He needed only to trust the connection. Outside, fleets closed in, weapons armed. Commanders barked orders. The faction saw only a weapon slipping from their grasp. Elias placed his hand on the console, and the vessel responded instantly. Shields shimmered into existence, deflecting the first volley of fire. The hum rose to a steady roar, a heartbeat now synchronized with his own. He didn't command it like a pilot barking orders. He whispered, he guided, he listened. Together they moved as one, weaving between barges of fire, outthinking enemies who relied on brute strength and cold calculation. He felt their confusion. No one had ever faced a ship that fought like this, not with predictable tactics, but with human improvisation, instinct, creativity. Every maneuver came not from strategy manuals, but from the same place Elias had always worked. The gut. He remembered repairing transports with missing tools, patching systems with scraps, finding ways no one else would have tried. Now that same ingenuity guided a vessel from another age. And it worked. Alien ships, faster and stronger on paper, found themselves outmatched at every turn by a human mechanic and a heartbeat of the ship that trusted him.